Hello there everyone, welcome back to the mini album workshop. So we're going to start going through each of the elements now and how you make them. I'm going to give you several options so that you can make your own choice as to which method you want to use, and show you a couple of different ways in which you can make these things. At the end of the day, you don't have to follow these instructions. You can do your own thing, you can use your own imagination. Excuse me, but I just want to go through with you how I would consider doing this, okay? So on this first page that I've chosen, and on the first thing on the list of instructions is the horizontal belly band. So that's what I'm going to cover first. Now, as I say, you might have decided that you want your horizontal belly band somewhere else in your album. I'm going to put it on this front page here. So first of all, I need to determine what size I want it to be. And what I will need to do is I need to measure the paper itself, not the card, but the paper. All right. So for me, because yours might be different, remember, mine is 5 5/8 wide. Now the other thing I also need to determine is the depth of the belly band that I'm going to be creating as well. And as it happens, I like the width that my ruler is created for a belly band on there, and in this particular instance this ruler is 2 inches wide, so I'm going to do 5 5/8 by 2 inches wide. But which materials can I use? Well, you could use the scraps of paper that you've got left over that you already cut out. So for me, for instance, I could use this paper here, which is the leftover, and I would cut that 5 1/8 by 2 inches deep, and then I would glue that in place. Another option is just to use a plain piece of card, maybe even the card that you've used as your background pages here, your base pages. Now for me, that card is too thick, so you don't want it to be too thick, a piece of card, because it would just stand too proud and create too many problems. So I would actually need to use a thinner piece of card, so probably about a 210 GSM is what I would use as the thickness for this belly band. Another option is to use acetate, and acetate is what I used in the original journal. And if I put my paper underneath, so you can get plain acetate and you can get already pre-printed acetate. So as you can see, there is a pattern on this piece of acetate here. So I could cut out a strip, just show you, I could cut out a strip and utilize that on the page. Now the reason why I'm not using the acetate on this one is because it's a highly decorated piece of acetate. When I put it on top of the page, because this is highly decorated, the patterns clash too much, and so it doesn't work very well. The reason why I used the acetate in the first instance was so that this patterned paper would show through the belly band. Alright, but I'm not going to in this instance use this acetate because it's too heavily patterned. The other option that I have is to use vellum, and vellum is like a thicker form of tracing paper. There's no reason why you can't use a decent tracing paper either, but it tends to be a little bit on the flimsy side. Vellum is a little bit more robust. And again, I would use the vellum for the simple fact that the pattern shows through of the background paper through the vellum itself, and so you're not losing the effect of the pattern. Now if you were using vellum, the other thing that you can do is you can print on it, and I've been very naughty because I just wanted to show you it as a different option, and we're not really supposed to do this because of copyright rules. I just wanted to show you that you could actually print another pattern out maybe, but what I did was I placed some of this patterned paper onto my copier and I colour copied it onto the vellum itself, so that I've cut out a piece that now matches up with the pattern that's on the paper, and so that doesn't then show as being something completely different because it blends in, because it's the same pattern. One of my little post-it notes has just fallen out. I'll have to find where that goes in a bit. Now then, if I was using vellum, or where did I put it? There we go, acetate. You've got to think about the glue that you would use to glue these to here, because it's not paper. So you need something a little bit more robust. Now you could use your double-sided tape. The problem with using double-sided tape on the acetate especially is that strip of tape will more than likely show through at each of the ends when you come to adhere it onto your book page. Vellum, not quite so much, but it's not really a sturdy enough glue to stick to vellum and then to stick to paper. I would actually use my Glossy Accents glue. Now with Glossy Accents, you need to leave it about 24 hours, at least leave it overnight, so that if you use this, so that it then adheres completely to the paper itself. And what I would do is on the back side, we're going to glue first down one edge and then down the other short edge. So you would put a thin line of glue on each of the ends, whether it be on the vellum or whether it be on the acetate. I would then leave it for just a few minutes to just let the glue go off. What I mean by that is that the glue itself will form a very slight skin over the top of the line of glue that you've put on. If I didn't wait for that thin skin to form and I just put the glue on the back of there and then stuck that on, it can ooze out and it can ooze in, so it doesn't then give a very good finish on it because you've got the glue oozing out. All right, it helps to create a better bond as well between the vellum and the paper, so that's why I always leave it for just a couple of minutes to just form that slight skin over the top of it before I then adhere it onto the actual page itself. And exactly the same with the acetate. I would put the glue on each end, let the skin form, and then put it on after a couple of minutes, and then I would leave it overnight before I even tried to do anything about it. Now I'm actually going to be using just the plain vellum to create my pocket, to create my belly band. So I know that I want it 5 5/8 wide and 2 inches deep, but there is a slight but, and I'm going to make the belly band up first before I show you why there is a but. So I'm going to cut myself a 2-inch wide strip of vellum. And then I'm going to fold over one of the short edges by about just a little more than maybe 1/4 of an inch. So you don't want quite 1/2 an inch. Okay, so I've now got this little flap at this end. I'm now going to measure the 5 5/8. Let me do it at that end. 5 5/8. So that would take me up to this edge here, but I want to add a little bit of a flap on this end as well. So at the moment my flap's here, but I want to add another flap on this end. So I'm going to add on another, well, let's add 3/8 of an inch on. So I've just slid it this way, 3/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to chop off that excess. And then just double check, and I'm just going to finger mark, or nail mark I should say, and can you see I've now created marks on my vellum where I'm just going to now fold it over. So I've now got this little lip at each of the short ends. Can you see that okay? I've got 2 little flappy bits there. Now the reason why I'm doing that is because if I cut it to the exact size and then stuck it on, I have got the thickness of the glue that has extended as I pushed it into contact. It's extended into the page, both at this side and this side, thus get me all posh, thus reducing the width of the access into that belly band. If I place glue on the flap here and here and then adhere it down, I've now got access to the full width of the belly band, because those little flaps just help to create that bit of space to allow me to use the full width of the belly band itself. Okay, what I would actually do before I stick it down is I need my scissors. Be right back. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to taper. You see the ink on my fingers, look. I'm just going to taper very, very tiny amount off each of those flaps towards the fold, because I don't want the square edge to stick out beyond the belly band. So if I taper it just slightly, it helps to give a slightly more professional finish. Now again, I'm going to use my Glossy Accents glue, and I'm just going to place it on top of those flaps, and I'm just going to leave it to sit there for a couple of minutes to let the glue take off and just help to form that bit of a skin. So I'm just going to put that up there out the way for just a second. The next thing on the list is the large pocket. Now you could utilise any of the scraps that you've got left over. You could utilise any of these scraps to make the large pocket. You could go through any of your patterned papers and think to yourself, well, that will make a really nice large pocket, as would that, as would this. But do I really want to waste sheets, full 12 by 12 sheets of the paper pack? So I'm actually going to be using one of these very large journaling cards. So I'm going to cut one of those out and use that as my large pocket. So I'm just going to go back to my vellum, and I'm just going to stick that in place. And I want it not quite halfway down, so it's fractionally higher, and I mean like fractionally higher than the halfway point. And I'm just going to push that down slightly to make sure that I've got a nice even contact. The other thing is about the flaps is because the glue is on the back of those flaps, you now can't see the glue showing through this top piece of the vellum. So that's another advantage of having the flaps as well. So that's that belly band now in place, and I'm going to leave it for now. I could decorate this up if I wanted to by adding lace on it, or some the roses trim. You need to have a look through your own stash really and see if there's anything else that you want to add onto that, but I'm going to leave mine fairly plain. So I'm now going to look for my big pocket. Have I gone past it? Hang on, is that from that one? Horizontal bottom pocket, I think that was from that one. Vertical pocket, I think it was this one, wasn't it? No, that was that one. Large pocket, there we go. Okay, so my large pocket is going to go on here. If I used this paper on top of it, it would kind of blend into the background a little, and I actually in this instance want it to stand out a little bit more. If you wanted it to blend in, then there's no reason why you couldn't use that, but I'm going to use one that stands out a little bit. Now the edge of the pattern for me finishes around this green border here. I'm actually going to cut it a little bit bigger all the way around and have that green edge as the finished edge of the pocket. Now then, I want to try and waste as little as possible. Let's just trim that top edge off first. I want to waste as little as possible off this. So if I go to about there, okay, and a little beyond, and then I'm going to slide it across and try and do the same on the other side. So I'm allowing myself probably just shy of 1/4 of an inch border around the 3 sides. So can you see now I've got the border here, here, and on the bottom here. I'm then going to use my score pal, and I'm just going to score along that green border edge. First down that one side, spin it round and do it on the other side. And then do it across the bottom. Now you could just have cut it out to the actual size that it was, but adding these flaps on the sides helps to create a little bit of space within your pocket. So at the moment I'm just finger pressing them over. Okay, so it'll be like that with that bit of a lip on each of the sides, flat on the top, and there will be the flap at the bottom as well. And again, what I'm going to do, if I can remember where I put my scissors, there they are, is I'm just going to taper off those corners. So I'm going to do a small taper here. I'm going to do a small taper at the bottom, and then I'm going to spin it round and do a taper at the bottom, which will then help to remove that corner piece. And then I'm going to do a taper at the bottom there, spin it round, taper here, and it will get rid of that corner bit, and then a small taper at the top. Now I've done that, I'm going to fold those edges over and I'm going to burnish them. So I'm going to burnish the 2 long ones down, and then the one at the bottom will go over the top. Now I'm just going to neaten this corner up because I didn't get it just quite right and it just ripped a little. So I just want to trim off that little bit of excess. There we go. Right, so we've got the 2 long ones folding in and then the bottom one folding over the top of it. For this I'm just going to use my PVA glue, and I'm going to place 2 lines of glue on the 2 long edges going underneath, so I'm going right to the bottom and right to the top. Then I'm going to push that bottom piece down so it now adheres to those 2 long strips, and then I'm going to put some glue along that flap as well. and then that will sit slightly lower than halfway, so you should have a little less space here than you've got at the top. So you should have more at the top, slightly less at the bottom, because we've got to remember that we're going to put something inside this pocket and we want it to have enough space to extend above and beyond the pocket. Now if you were using just your ordinary patterned paper, you would still go through the same process. You would need to work out what size pocket you're making, both width and height, and then you need to add 1/4 of an inch on this side, 1/4 of an inch on this side, and 1/4 of an inch on this side. That 1/4 of an inch creates those flaps. We don't need the extra on the top, so you would need to measure what size pocket you want to make. Now this particular pocket measures 4 inches by 6 inches, so I would then cut it 4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, so that's 4.5 inches wide, by 6 and the 1/4 inch flap at the bottom. So it would be a 4.5 inch wide piece of paper by 6 1/4 inches long, and then that allows you then to have the 1/4 of an inch flaps on the sides and the 1/4 of an inch flap on the bottom. So we've now added 2 of our elements to our mini album. So we've got the belly band and we've got the pocket. I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll come back in another video to show you a couple more of the elements that we're going to make. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.